Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Automation, the car company Tycoon game. We are continuing on the Vector Automotive Challenge today in the year 1977. We are also checking out the new public beta, open beta, I suppose is the correct term, of Automation, checking out the new version of the upcoming build that will include some more things to do with engineering factories and Tycoon elements that are being just kind of tested. They're not really implemented in the way that they will be in the actual Tycoon experience. It's more of a proof of concept. We'll check that out after we build ourselves a new car. Last time we built the Vector Ascent, which I think was a very well-received car, possibly one of the most well-received Vector cars that has been built in nearly a decade. So if the year is 1977, things are starting to get very interesting in the automotive world for us. Really, things are very interesting in the entire country. Keep in mind that Vector is an American car company selling primarily to the American market. And the fuel crunch is now really starting to become an issue. Buyers are very interested in vehicles that are cheap and cheap to run, cheap to put fuel in. They have good economy. But overall, the economy of the country is not doing too great either, so people's budgets are starting to get a little bit more restricted than they previously were. As a company, we've always been extremely focused on performance, the spirit of driving. Today we'll show the biggest challenge to that spirit as we try to build ourselves an economy hatch. This is a car that is very, very prominently dominated by the Japanese market right now. The Europeans also have very good options. The American manufacturers that we've seen are not succeeding with this market. It is a very difficult one to get into. We're trying to break into it. You know, I think we're already behind, to be honest. Honda and Toyota and some of these Japanese manufacturers are doing very well. They are selling vehicles much cheaper than any of our vehicles are, and they do seem to have very good economy. So we'll see what we could do with the American manufacturer's mindset. We're not just going to build a clone of a Civic here. We want to build something that is as Vector as possible. Now, me personally, this has never been my favorite kind of car. I've never been much of a small hatch kind of fan. So this will be a very interesting challenge for me as a designer to try and make this something that I am proud of, because as a car designer, that is one of the things that you kind of strive for. You want to build cars that you're proud to make. So yeah, there's going to be a tough road for me to hoe here, but I will try my best. I've gone for this kind of slanted forward nose. I think that gives it a little bit more of a sporty look than does the straight up or the curvy nose. The curvy nose really doesn't look era correct versus this does. Let's even go a little bit more extreme with that. There we go. And let's go onto the chassis real quick. You can see that we do have a new option here. Space frame is now available. Sorry to say that we will not be exploring this space frame just yet. Sorry. But we will be going with the monocoque chassis. We're going to go with steel. And this will be our first front-wheel drive-based car as a company. So that will be also an interesting challenge. It is going to be my first strut up front. And in the rear, let's do semi-trailing arm to begin with. If that is too expensive, we could possibly go down to a quote-unquote solid axle. But I think this semi-trailing arm is probably a good option. Steel on the body as well. There we go. Moving right along. Time to do some fixtures. Let me see what I can do. It's 1977. There's a look happening right now. We just don't have a whole lot of fixture options yet. So just going to try and make it fit the theme of the rest of our cars. Just a quick little shout out here. Make sure you guys, if you are playing Automation, you're checking out the Steam Workshop. Lots of great things being added. There was a little bit of a lull there at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, but now all of a sudden a lot of good things are being added. VMO is doing a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool fixtures and bodies. This is actually a modded body, I do believe. I think so. And then the grill here, this is a new grill. There's tons of new grill options. A lot of stuff for modern cars, still lacking a little bit of the stuff for older cars. But definitely make sure you're checking out the Steam Workshop. Lots of cool stuff being added all the time. I'm really a fan of this grill. I think it's cool to see just unique designs getting added, not necessarily things that mirror existing car designs. So that is cool. This one has really neat options too, like just with the different colorings you can do with it. The grill, that could be chrome in the middle. I really like this one with the colored accents on the side. It's just a neat fixture. In fact, now that I am wrapping up on this design, pretty simple, but I think it's working. But in fact, if you are a modder out there and you do make badges and you want to get yourself immortalized in a lot of videos on YouTube, you make yourself a Vector Automotive badge of some kind, you, sir or madam, may get yourself featured in a lot of videos. Just saying, just saying. But continuing on, let's see, that's going to be our base model. I think that is good. Obviously, we just need to choose a color and that it's going to be front-wheel drive. No options there. Although an all-wheel drive version of this would be really cool. It doesn't look like you can do that with this chassis. That's okay. Let's see. The red wasn't too bad. The blue is actually a little weird. I usually like the blue. The gray is pretty good too. You know what? Let's actually stick with the... this is supposed to be the base model, so let's go with the gray for this one. That'll work. That will be fine. For an engine for this guy, let's do an inline 4. It needs to be cheap, it needs to be light, and it needs to be efficient. Those are 3 things that usually you take 2 and leave 1. Well, we're going to try and accomplish all 3. We'll see how it goes. I have a feeling, judging by my previous engine building history, it's the cheapness that's going to take the aside. But let's see how small we have to make this thing to get it to fit. Pretty darn small. 1.5 liters, though, is okay. It's going to be a very light car, so it can be a very light engine. Let's do a single overhead cam. Can we put 3 valves per cylinder on there? Let's make that head aluminum. Looking good, looking good. This is going to look even better soon, if you catch my drift. Continuing on, let's see here. Let's do basic everything on the bottom. We'll not worry about quality just yet. Compression is going to need to be low because we are using that unleaded fuel. Let's keep this somewhat low. Let's go down to a 35 perhaps. And then that's not going to be any options there. Naturally aspirated. Turbos are available, but I don't think we're quite ready for that business just yet. And the mechanical injection would be available, but far too expensive. But we have these new single barrel eco carbs. Let's see if that would do it. We may need 2 of them. We will see. We're just going to run this thing on regular unleaded. And we'll leave that there. We'll leave that there. We'll leave that there because I don't know just what this thing's going to do. Yeah, 3-inch exhaust. We're not going to need that. Definitely not. Maybe this 1.25. Maybe. Let's see. I think we do need cats. Let's put the cat on there. Let's do some future proofing. And we're probably not going to need much in the way of mufflers, so we'll do 1 reverse flow and just roll with that for now. All right, let's see. Does it even? Okay, it did produce numbers, but let's go back to the beginning and look at the chart. We are restricted in the airflow or the carburetor, so let's try twins. Twins, that did it. And let's see, it is actually running rich. Well, that's rich. So, wow. Look how lean we have to make this thing with that eco carb. Yikes. Let's go down on the compression. There we go. 7.8. What's the economy looking like right now? Or what's the efficiency looking like? That's what I'd really like to see. The economy is at 0.89. That would give us an economy of 14%. Let's get it higher than that, ideally. Don't 100% know how we're going to do that at this point, but I would like to. Okay, so we've hit somewhat of a happy medium. I've got the economy up to 15%, which is not fantastic by any means, but is good for the kind of technology we're dealing with at the moment. 74 foot-pounds of torque, 64 horsepower. Hopefully that's enough to get this thing up and moving at highway speeds. We will see. This is probably more of a city/short commute car than it is a highway car, but there is hopefully a market for that, and we can make other trims of the car that will serve different purposes. So for this guy, I think that is where I'm going to end it off for this engine. Here's an overview of the things that I have done with it, and mostly just kept leaning up that fuel mix, kept the cam pretty sane, and spent a little bit of our quality dollars onto the carburation system, things like that. Well, let's move on to the trim and see what we can do with this guy, see if it is possible to make this into a road-going car, see if it is able to do that, and see if it's able to be called the Vector Able. I don't know why, but that name came to me as I was designing the engine, and the name Vector Able really combines into Vectorable, and I like that, so we're gonna roll with it. This is the... We're going to throw this word out about 35 years too soon. This is the Eco Trim. Okay, well, I did an initial run through already, but let's do some fine tuning. I've selected commuter budget and city as the two options. There's a bunch this one could go through, though. As of right now, you can see it's got a drivability of 39, a sportiness of an amazing 2.4, but a comfort of 17.2. It's doing all right as a vehicle. 0 to 60 is an 11.9, which sounds atrocious, I know, but is actually much better than I anticipated, so that is encouraging. 23.9 miles per gallon isn't setting the world on fire, but it's not too bad considering the rest of our cars in our lineup. But let's see if we can make that even better. Obviously, it could use a little bit of overdrive, and there we go. We're already up to 25.3, 2.5. No, that would be the rest of our cars. Let's see. You can make that better, but that 0 to 60, she's a-climbing. 5-speed box would help bring that 0 to 60 back down. How does it affect the cost? You know, it's not that expensive. It's only 0.8 production units and a few extra bucks. Let's do it. I think it's worth it. And then, how does this affect the mileage? It definitely does. Shorter spacing. We would definitely want to hit 60 in third gear at a minimum. You'd like to hit it in second, but this is not that kind of car. So I think that is probably a decent balance right there. Yep, let's do that for now. Let's keep it at 55. Moving on. I've used these tires for the first time. Hard, long life road tires, which should make this an affordable car to drive. I have it set on 155s. You can actually go smaller than that on tires. In theory, smaller tires would help your miles per gallon, I would think. It doesn't bring that up on that screen, so I'm going to go down to 145s, and we'll just look back at it. 25.7, 25.5. It does indeed, but what does it do to the rest of the statistics? Well, our sportiness went from 2.4 to 1.4. Or no, has that actually come up? Let's see. Yeah, so let's not do that. That's just a little unnecessary, I think. Let's not make this car unsafe to drive with tires that narrow. What is it on here that's the 37? I think that's the affordability, perhaps. I believe so. So it's actually a little bit outpriced for a commuter budget car, but it's scoring pretty well in that market. We went with steel wheels, just plain old steel wheels. In the brakes, let's see, rear brakes are outperforming significantly. So we'll shrink those drums in the back down. That'll save us some weight, save us some money, and that helps pretty much everything if you can make it cheaper. Alright, that is good. I think the front looks okay. It's just outperforming the tires, so that is a good thing. In the cooling airflow, I believe we have a little bit to spare here. So let's bring that down, and that'll help our miles per gallon up to 25.6. That is good. On the interior, I went with 4 seats as I thought it would be a little bit more comfortable. What does 5 do? Yeah, it does help, actually. It does make it, I guess, more practical. but it does make it heavier and less comfortable, I think. Yeah, it does definitely lower the comfort of it. But it brings that practicality score, and practicality is pretty important in all of these. So yeah, let's do the 5 seats. We'll shove 2 people or 3 people in the back of this thing. I'm so sorry to those 3 people. Safety is not usually something you want to mess with as far as like things to go cheap on. But if it helps us score better, we'll do it. But it doesn't seem to really help. People buying these cars are usually toting around their families, so they don't want to be toting them around in something that they'll get squished in. Very basic on the suspension. Comfort actually does help us a little bit because it raises the drivability and the comfort. The sportiness is dropping, but that's a virtual non-issue with this car. Let's increase the front dampening. Okay, so there we go. That is a finished eco model of the Able, I do believe. Not too shabby. 1,576 pounds. You don't even need a jack to change the tire on this car, just pick up the corner. Total cost of $36.42. That's about the lowest I've ever seen. 69 production units. 43 drivability, 16.6 comfort. That number, 7.7 prestige. Yikes. We are getting 64.5 horsepower through a 5-speed box. 15% economy. Did net us a 25.5 miles per gallon, which is good, and combine that with how cheap the car is going to be tempting to those buyers. Here, let's take a look. What's the quarter mile? 18.4. That's not that bad. That is, I mean, if you think about it, highway speed, you gotta get up to 55 or 60. You can do that safely. It's teetering on the edge there, but I think you can still do that safely. The 0 to 60 time of 11.9. That is okay. The top speed is 92. Let's be honest, with the size of those tires, you're not going to want to go more than 92 miles an hour. Really, I'm just looking after your safety. So if we look at the markets here, it's looking pretty good. There's a lot of green on here. Let's actually go to the list page here. It is scoring best. It's scoring best as far as the competitiveness. Not necessarily the affordability, you know, how many people can actually afford to buy it. It's scoring best in pony budget. So that shows you that it is a pretty, decent performing little car. If it's doing well on pony budget, it's doing well on family sport budget, city fun budget, fun city budget, family budget, city eco, commuter budget, commuter light sport budget, and track budget. I could see that today. Like, it'd probably be a damn good 80s autocross car, would it not? So yeah, I think we're doing good things here. Obviously, we need to make a little bit of money off of the thing too, but not going too crazy. This is a car to sell a lot of units of to make money on, not make a lot of money off of every unit. So that is that. But before we move on to these next 3 tabs that are new, let me work on another trim because it's going to help us explain or experiment with things in these next 3 tabs even better. And I have something in mind to do with this car. Alright, let's be honest. You all knew what I was going to do. I took that V6 that we made for the last car, and I threw it in this one. And it fit just fine. It actually fits perfectly in there. And it turns our little Able into something that is very able. 12.9 miles per gallon isn't quite what we were getting in the last one, sure. But 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds isn't exactly what we're getting in that either. And a 14.8 quarter mile. And a sportiness of 17 with a drivability of 35. So what we have here is a 1977 hot hatch. I doubt this would actually be a car that anybody would have made in the era, but we're going to make it anyway. And we're going to try, and it's going to be awesome. Let's see what it does here in the markets, if it has any kind of market. Pony budget, track budget, and pony. Okay, so we're going to try and sell this car up against the Mustangs, the Mustang 2s. Maybe it'll do well. Who knows? But really, I just needed it to serve as an example for what we're going to do here. We're going to click on this guy with a clock on his head. So what you are seeing here is the next step in automation development. This is the stuff that the guys have been working on behind the scenes because it's not something that is easily visually represented. This is a very, very early draft of the visual representation of this stuff, but it's basically in this tab where you'll hire a staff to build the car, and in the purpose of a sandbox mode like this, that is solely so that you have an idea of the actual cost of building the vehicle. Without this, it's really all a rough guesstimate. There's no defined values or anything. They just kind of go with averages. So this stuff maybe not super relevant to the sandbox mode, but it's very important to test it for the upcoming edition of a Tycoon or story mode to the game. But here you can hire different team leads and engineering teams for both the chassis of the car and the engines. And you'll need to hire people specific to the types of things you're doing. Like for this car, we would need somebody that is pretty good with the parts of the car that will make it cheaper to produce. So somebody that's good with a chassis design, somebody that's good with aero design to make it more efficient. On the engine side, you'll hire people that are good with inline fours, which I believe we've done with somebody. Yeah. Marwa here is an inline 4 master, and you'll see that he'll have different values, like he's good with bottom end parts, he's good with top end, fuel system, and a little bit with exhaust, not very good with aspiration, which is fine, because we don't need him to have any knowledge of turbos, because we're not doing that yet. So that's the kind of stuff you'll see here, and you'll have a whole different assortment of people you can choose from. There's different staff members that have different good kind of qualities, and there's people that have very average qualities all the way across the board. All of this stuff, I am actually not going to go into too much of a depth of explanation right now, because I am going to invite, or I'm going to convince Caswell to join me next time to go over some of this stuff, give us an overview of what it all is, what it all does, and where it's going to take us into the future, because I want you guys to have a better understanding of what the team is doing as far as expanding this game into a full Tycoon, because I know a lot of people are very patiently waiting for that part of the game before they even start playing. So I would like to give everybody that watches maybe just my content and not necessarily follows the development tree and stuff like that, I'd like to give you guys somewhat of an update as to how that's going. So stay tuned to that for next time, and we will go over that tab, here the factory tab, and then you have an engine, or a staff for the factory, things like that. There's a lot of options here. I would rather have Caswell or one of the guys, maybe Robert's, opinion on what this all means and what this all does, rather than just giving you my kind of initial impression on it, so that you have a good idea of the direction that they are headed with this. Then when you're all done with that, it will give you a completely different kind of market perspective, because you'll have a very different price for your car as to how much it's going to cost and how much you're going to sell it for. So all of that is really important. It's very important to, like I said, the development of the Tycoon part of the game. There's two main trees of development going on in Automation right now. There's the Tycoon development, as far as that stuff, that factory stuff going on behind the scenes, and there's the transition over to the Unreal Engine, which will make this game have a very different visual kind of look to it and have much more graphical power for the future. So we can do other cool things with it. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that today. Look forward to next time with that little bit more of an in-depth explanation into the factory kind of side of the game. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.